So, Keith, you're a man that has everything and wants for nothing. Is there any things that don't exist that you wish did in the woodworking world?
There are many, many things, and that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. And we'd love to hear from the listeners as well, to hear some of your ideas of things that you think should exist.
I'm going to start with something that's probably obvious for me, and that's machines. I feel there's cheap machines and there's professional machines. And not only do you get a step up in quality and price, you get a step up in size. I want really good machines that are small and compact for the home workshop. And I don't feel that particularly exists. Axminster have their craft range. I think they've just renamed it. I think they called it their workshop range.
Yes.
And they're quite nice, but they're not as nice as their professional or whatever trade or whatever they call it now. They keep changing it. So I'm going to start with, I want a table saw, which you'll be amazed to hear. And I've got a list of the specifications that I want. I want it to have a cast iron top. I want it to have standard miter slots. I want it to have an induction motor. I want it to have a dust shroud. So this is most things that cabinet saws, they have the induction motor, miter slots, and cast iron top. The dust just all falls down into the cabinet. As contractor saws are shrouded around the blade, and actually the dust collection I find is much better.
Yeah.
Then I want an easy adjust and change riving knife, toolless change.
Oh, God, yes.
I want an easy change and adjust throat plates. I really like the Axminster Craft saw, but I think it was like 6 screws to change the throat plate. And sometimes you want to do that quite often. I do it several times in a day sometimes. Good fence, obviously. Maybe some kind of extensions for the wings. It doesn't have to come as standard, but be able to bolt on other bits easily to extend the wings. I think the Axminster expensive ones for $2,500 probably offer all those things, but then it wouldn't fit in my workshop. It wouldn't fit in my new workshop. So something small, compact, and quality. I see a lot of woodworkers that actually have a reasonable amount of money, some of them, and want really good machines, but don't have room for the really high-end machines.
Because obviously in the UK, space is at a premium. Everyone's working in pretty small areas, even professionally. I mean, some professional workshops are still really small spaces, but things tend to be designed for perhaps the American market or other countries where space isn't at such a premium. I feel your pain on the table saw insert plate, because mine is the same with the screws, and I've thought about ways of getting around that, but some kind of latching switch mechanism that latches underneath the table. It's one of those things, and there are many of these things, that you think if I dedicated a couple of hours to this, I could definitely find a solution. But I don't know about you, but I'm always focusing more on projects than workshop improvements.
Yeah, especially as you can't make a video about it most of the time, because if you do it for your table saw, it's have no relevance to other people's a lot of the time. I think a simple one that I see in a lot of American saws is just make the insert plate deeper. Mine is about 5 mil thick, but if you say 1.5, 2 centimeters thick, then it just gives you so many more options. And so same as a planer thicknesser. I've just got a little one and it's great. But if you want to get one with an induction motor and a spiral cutter block, it's got to be a big floor standing thing. But with my tent, there's no way I'm moving that in and out the house.
Yeah.
Where you've got the same one as I had, it takes 2 people to lift the one you've got up and down. This one would be even heavier. I think a lot of people would love almost like a bench top one that you could lift in and out from a shelf, but it had a spiral cutter block and a good dust extraction and just was good quality.
Yeah, thinking about table saws again, a lot of the well-known tool brands, your Bosch, your Makitas, your Milwaukees, all of those have table saws designed that are packed full of innovative things like easy change riving knives and things like that, but they lack that cast iron table and the quality. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you can get the machines from the likes of Axminster, Charnwood, places like that have that quality in terms of cast iron table, but lack all of the innovation features, don't they, kind of thing.
You're completely right. The two need mashing together to make some kind of hybrid saw.
I guess the closest to it might be that rigid one in the States, or lumberjack here. Is it the TS 1800 or something like that? Which has a cast iron table, has a mobile base, and I think has some of those features that we've talked about as well. But I'd like to have a look at one.
I think the trouble is when you're spending £1,000+ on something, it's really nice to actually be able to see it.
Yeah. There's nowhere you can go to a shop and look at these things, is there?
Definitely not with the lumberjacks one, I think. Yeah. Obviously, Axminster can, and Charnwood ones, I've seen them at things. I've seen them at Maker Central. They had a stand. So I don't know if the lumberjacks do things like Maker Central when you can actually feel the quality of it and talk to someone about it, because you don't want to waste your money on something that's terrible, do you?
Big delivery as well, so if you ordered one of those and weren't happy with it, sending it back is going to be a real problem. So my first one is actually going to be materials. I cannot believe that with all of the problems in the world getting hold of birch plywood, that no one has manufactured a board that is a good alternative yet. So a board with a face ply that is as thick as the plies in the core, so you can sand it without having any issues, because the stuff that you pick up at the DIY stores and building merchants, the hardwood ply, which has a paper thin veneer that sometimes you can just cough over it and it'll splinter off. It's just the most pointless product that I can think of, really, in terms of usability, because that face veneer is so useless. Why hasn't anyone manufactured a board yet using timber that is sustainable? So something like beech, for example, which, doesn't have the most interesting grain pattern, but it's still pale in colour and it ticks a lot of those boxes. They could even just have the internal plies made from pine, because let's face it, it's the face ply that's important. That's the one that everyone wants to look nice. So even maybe a maple face ply, which would look really nice, and then a poplar core or a pine core or something like that. Just a good quality plywood board that can be used in making furniture that doesn't have a face veneer that is absolutely useless. The closest I can think of to that is probably that structural 18mm spruce ply that you can get in DIY shops, the softwood ply, where you do get a decent thick face ply, but it's with the nature of spruce, you're going to get knots and defects in the wood and everything, and it'd just be nice to get a really nice quality plywood board.
Yeah, I've had some of those spruce ones that have been quite nice sometimes, and other times they've been awful. It's very hit and miss. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I've seen these bamboo plies, but I guess the problem with those is bamboo isn't grown anywhere locally, so then you're shipping it around the world. But it's definitely an interest. I'm sure I was reading something that bamboo can grow like 1 metre a day or something. I might be making that up exactly, but it's just an amazing material. So it seems it uses less water, and if you're chopping down a beech tree, when can you harvest that beech tree next? 50 years time? I don't know.
Yeah.
As if bamboo, if you can just get a crop every year. And I've seen like the bamboo chopping boards and things, and I like the look of them.
They look really cool, yeah, I guess. But if I'm assuming each piece of bamboo is a strip in that material, if you know what I mean. So I guess even though it grows really quickly, it probably still does take quite a lot of material and process in terms of lamination to get it all together and consistent, I would imagine. Yeah,
I guess so.
It just seems like there's such a shortage of it. It's in such high demand. It's extremely expensive now, obviously, because there is a shortage of it. And I'm surprised that one of the big board manufacturers hasn't just jumped on that niche to try and fill that gap in the market and make loads of money off it.
Have you ever used veneered MDF?
Yeah, a few times. Yeah, I used a walnut veneered MDF and an oak veneered MDF.
So why would you prefer plywood over MDF? Because you want to expose the edges?
Partly that, but mainly, again, because the face veneer is so incredibly thin.
Right.
You really do have to be quite careful with sanding and touch-ups and things like that. So, I just want something with, even 1 millimetre or 2 millimetres, because usually they're about 0.5 mil, aren't they, or something? And those hardwood plies probably even thinner. Yeah.
That's interesting. I like Andy Rules, and he's just created this huge table that has a vacuum bag that comes down so they can veneer their own panels.
Nice.
I'm not really a veneer person, but for him getting these local timbers that he can resaw on his massive bandsaw and then create his own veneered panels, he's just on a sectioned table where it's like 30 triangles glued together to make this table.
That looks great.
It does look great, but I can't get my head around how you could possibly do such a thing. But he's obviously very talented. But I've never had a go at veneering my own panels, I think because clamping them up is difficult and having the space to do them. Is it something you've tried?
I've done it once or twice. I didn't really enjoy the process. It's one of those things that you really need the right equipment to do, I think.
Vacuum bags do seem the way to go.
Yeah, totally. I also hate working with that gloopy contact adhesive that comes in a tin. The spray-on stuff I've had great results with. I really enjoy using that, but the stuff that comes in a tin, it's just the worst stuff to work with, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, though, if you have a vacuum bag, you don't need to use that stuff. You can just use PVA.
Yeah.
I think the idea of the contact adhesive is an instant bond, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's no room for error whatsoever. Yeah. There's no taking it off and having another go.
Yeah.
I've got another one on materials, but it's not really a new material I wish existed. This is probably something we've spoken about before. I can't believe it's not easier to buy materials.
See, this is one I had as well.
I was worried when you'd started on the materials one that you were going to beat me to it, so I thought I'd better get in quick. Yeah, why is there just not a good online store with easy explanation of what you're buying, not in board feet? That's just such a ridiculous measurement. Where you buy a 2x4 and you know that it's 38 by 89 by 2.4 meters. I think I'm right at that.
Yeah.
But you know exactly what you're getting.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know other things you can't buy like that, and just obvious what the prices are and the delivery is, and yeah, that's all I want.
Yeah, I had it written down as a modern way to buy materials, because I think these timber merchants, building merchants, all need to be dragged kicking and screaming into this century, even to the point of if you think about the likes of B&Q, Screwfix and Tool Station's search engines on their websites are dreadful. You put in specifically what you want and sometimes it'll come up with something completely different, and you just think, how can it be this useless? But yeah, I mean, I've moaned before about the process of my local timber merchant in terms of getting hold of the materials, not being able to even view the material, the process of ordering, having to then go into the shop, get a ticket, give it to a forklift driver, all of that stuff. The trouble is it seems like such a slow-moving industry because a lot of tradesmen have been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years. Maybe they don't like change, I don't know, but I'm sure they would welcome some changes in terms of going into a timber merchant or builder merchant and actually having to spend a quarter of the time that they would usually spend in getting their materials.
Yeah. And I think even if you just did more of a hobby-based store selling small amounts of hardwood, it'd be so popular. There is a few websites that do it, but then their prices are so ridiculous.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind paying 10% more for the ease, but it's not 10% more, it's double the price if we can get it somewhere else. So I don't know who buys it. Well, people that haven't ever found a good sawmill with the cheaper prices. Now, I'm even one of the big boys, the green and yellow supplier.
Yeah.
You can order online now and specify a delivery day, but then they never come back with you with a confirmation. They tend to call you up and say, oh no, we can't actually deliver that day. So it's pointless ever specifying a day because I've never had them deliver on that day.
Right.
Because the van's busy. So why offer that?
Yeah, I guess what they could be doing is thinking, oh, we've got to go that way tomorrow. Perhaps we'll give them a call and try and deliver it then. In terms of logistics, that probably makes sense for them.
But it's always a call as well. I've done it online, yet now you're phoning me. But I have my phone on silent all day, so I get some unrecognised number that hasn't left a voicemail. I'm not calling them back. And then time I look, it's not in office hours. Just if you'd have just pinged me an email, I could have just emailed you back in the evening and you'd see it in the morning and it's all fine. Either it's an online thing or it's not.
Yeah, product information as well is severely lacking on a lot of these websites as well. So you look up a product and you might have a specific question in mind, but it doesn't give you that information.
Well, my dad worked at an independent building merchants, and they got bought up by a bigger company. So all the small ones, I don't suppose many people are opening a new independent buildings merchant.
Yeah.
Because you just don't these days. Yeah, it is amazing, and it's something we've moaned about in probably every episode ever. So
yes,
people are probably bored of listening to this moan.
The thing is, with those small independent building merchants, the beauty of them is actually going into the shop and chatting to the guys who are usually extremely knowledgeable, and you probably don't get that so much with the larger chains, I guess. And the prices are still, let's face it, incredibly high. So it's like, what am I getting for my money here?
Well, it's like you go into Screwfix sometimes and there's someone that's just a DIY in front of you asking a question of the counter staff. And it's like, they're the same people that work in Argos.
Yeah.
I don't want to insult anyone, but they have no specialist knowledge in what they're selling. They're just selling it. And when you go to a builder's merchants, I mean, we went to this place that did fencing at my mum's because they were putting up a picket fence. And I just wanted a 2x4. I'd looked online and they don't sell them. And I said, do you have any, 4x2 material? And they do have it in stock. They just haven't got it listed on their price list or their website. But they've got piles of it. That's just insane. Well, I'd almost gone somewhere else because I'd looked and they don't do that material.
Yeah, at my local timber merchant that specialises in fencing timber and shed timber, that kind of stuff. A lot of the terminology, when I first looked at it, I was like, what on earth does this mean? So, for example, I'm looking at their price list now, feather edge 2X, 2EX. And I was thinking,
no idea.
What on earth does that mean? I think I looked it up and I found out that it means that you get two boards from one piece. So, for example, the feather edge says 100 mil by 22 mil. So 22 mil is the thickness, 100 is the width of the board. But 2X basically refers to the fact that because it's been cut at a diagonal, you get two pieces from one board. It's like, how is that ever going to make any sense to anyone other than people who have worked in the trade for years? And that's why the barrier of entry is so difficult into woodworking in general, really. And the likes of YouTube and people putting information out there that's useful, I think has been a great step in the right direction. But it's just the bigger organisations and companies that sell the products haven't really caught up.
Yeah, we've discussed this before, but I wanted some cladding for my workshop, and I think you'd found a fencing supplier locally that had it at a good price. You can't just Google it. If you Google it, a tongue and groove treated 2.4 metre long board is 20 quid a strip. And I'm probably going to get it for £3 a strip somewhere else.
Yeah. But as a beginner, you don't know that, do you? So you end up paying those ridiculous prices. There's going to be a lot of rants in this episode, isn't there?
I think so. This is anyone that's been listening for a while knows we should just call it workshop ranting.
Workshop ranter.
Hello, Matt here. It takes us quite a lot of time to prepare and produce each episode of this podcast, and we'd like to keep putting it out for free. If you enjoy the podcast and you'd like to help, support and shape future episodes, you can find a link to our Patreon page in the show notes or just search online for Workshop Banter Patreon.
So I think there should be one global measurement system. And I hate to be biased, but I think that measurement system should be metric. It just makes more sense. We're living in a world now where things need to be...
You want it standardised?
Yeah, standardised. And I know that comes with a whole world of pain in terms of certain countries realigning themselves. I've seen a lot of Americans and Canadians admitting that metric is a better system, but because they've grown up using imperial, it makes more sense to them, and I completely understand that.
I totally agree with you, but I don't understand why it's a problem, pretty much. As in, if I buy materials in this country, in the UK, it's all in imperial. And so's blades for machines and things. So it's only confusing when I watch American YouTubers, which, I'm getting information for free and I can work it out. So is there a time where this has been annoying to you?
Oh, countless times. I tell you what, one other thing that really bugs me is when people decimalize imperial measurements. So they'll say something like 2.3 inches. And it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't use imperial and then try and decimalize it. That's not how it works. If you want to commit to using imperial, then you say, 9 and 3/16 or whatever you want to, whatever you need to say to get it right. Don't decimalize it. That's not allowed. You're choosing to use that system. Live by it.
And I see a lot of Americans do all their measuring trick videos because they don't want to actually measure anything. And I don't think people in the rest of the world, and it pretty much is the rest of the world, don't do that. They just measure things. They don't need to fold a tape measure in half to get the measurement or any of that, because the maths is simple.
I can see certain advantages of using imperial.
I think I've heard a machinist explain that it's infinitely divisible. As soon as you get to a millimetre, then you get to fractions of a millimetre. But with the imperial system, it can always be divided. But in terms of woodworking, that is not an issue whatsoever.
Yeah, it's very rare that you would have to go to tolerances below a millimetre. And even if you needed to, then just use, 0.6 of a millimetre.
Yeah.
If you're going down to those kind of engineering tolerances, it can still be done. The divisibility makes sense, and that's why everything's in halves, quarters, eighths, sixteenths, etc. 30 seconds.
Wow, I'm not putting my name to that one. I'm saying if you like that system, you stick with it. I'm not taking away your system. You can fall out with a superpower.
It should apply to the UK as well. I think I mentioned in the last episode it was like 1960 or something when we apparently went metric. But I think everything needs to be standardised. I want to see kilometre per hour speed signs on the road. I want to buy pints. What would that be in millilitres?
I think it's probably about 600 mil.
600 mil? That sounds good to me.
My favourite one is that we buy petrol in litres but work out fuel efficiency in miles per gallon.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
And I also, you mentioned earlier when you buy material and it's measured in board feet or whatever, there are places that obviously sell it in board meter or cubic square meter or all of this stuff. I mean, it makes a complicated system even more complicated by having two different measurement units.
I just want a price per board, not by some volume, because I have no idea how much I would be getting.
I guess if you're buying timber on a large scale regularly, you get used to it and you get an understanding of what good value is and all of that stuff. But for anyone trying to get into it, it's a nightmare.
But I could still just, if I wanted lots, order 200 boards. That's not complicated, rather than ordering 17 cubic meters or something. That's probably way more than 20 boards, but you know what I mean. It's I don't see any need for it. Even some of the big boys sell construction timber in price per meter, and no, I want 2.4 meters is the standard. Sometimes you have 1.8, 3.2, is it 4.4, whatever the size is. There should be just separate pricing for each length, not price per meter. Because what if you want a 2.4 meter length? Do you go, I want 2.4 meters of it, but I want 10 of those? Don't just send me a pile of random wood that will add up to the length I wanted, because that's not how I...
Yeah, because you might need the length in certain boards. And
God, I think we need a counselling session over this one. It's clearly some deep issues over it. This sounds more like a rant, but I want to be positive. I bet someone's got a solution to this. So I've tried a lot of screws. Riser cutter.
Is that REISSER, isn't it?
Yeah, however you say that. I like those, and I think they're good quality and a good price. I recently tried Spax because everyone's bangs on about Spax. So my problem with Spax is I've got some that have they're gold and they have a posi drive size 2 head. Others have a T20 or something hex.
Is that the Torx?
But then it has a little Torx. And then they have their own little knobble at the end, which is not, so it's not only a Torx bit that's available through Spax. My point is with the riser, if I had a 3.5 times 30 screw, it would be a PZ2. If I had a 4 times 30, it'd be a PZ2. If I had a 4.5 times 30, it'd be a PZ2. If I had a 5 times 30, it'd be a PZ. You just have you can use pretty much keep a PZ2 bit in your driver all the time. With the Torx ones, over that range of screws would probably be 3 different Torx size bits.
Yes, yeah, because you need it to lock in accurately, don't you, in order to...
Yeah.
Completely agree.
So that's crazy. And then I have a box of 20 PZ2 bits, and then I've probably got old ones that are slightly worn and things. You're never going to run out. But you have to swap the bits out, and you put it down, and then you've lost that T16 bit or whatever, and then you're totally stuck because you can't find the bit, or you've got a box of screws that are a Torx head. Have I put the bit where I keep my bits, or have I put the bit back in the box, or is it in the drill, or is it in the bottom of the toolbox? These are me problems, but I just want it simple. I just want a range of screws. I can understand if you're getting a 3mm screw that it needs to be a PZ1. And I can understand if you've got a 6mm screw that it needs to be a PZ3. Actually, the bigger you get, then it makes more sense. Maybe even go for a like a bolt type head when you're putting like big timber screws in. But most of the time, I just want one range of screws. Riser are the best I've found, but I think the smallest they do are 3.5mm thickness.
Yeah.
And for doing things like a piano hinge, you need a 3mm screw, and I don't think they make one. So then it just annoys me that I have to go for a different manufacturer for that.
Yeah.
So I want them to have self-drilling points, which the riser do. Oh, and the Spax, I was using them. I snapped a screw. I've not snapped a screw in years and years and years, and I snapped a Spax.
No way.
Using a 12-volt drill, so not even something powerful. Like, I'm going to say something controversial, and people will be very cross. I think Spax are overrated.
I've never used them, so I couldn't say either way.
But yeah, I want them self-drilling, use the same driver through most of the range, and have a good range of sizes.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, I just want life to be easy. That's what I want, Keith.
Please just standardise everything. But these companies that make their own proprietary things and then make loads of money off the back of it because people have to buy that version of it, that's just I don't know, makes me angry.
Yeah, we've talked about it with dust ports before.
Yes.
But then other things work well, like sanding discs. You can buy sanding discs from anywhere, can't you, that fit most sanders?
Yeah.
I think Merkur and Festool do their crazy hole patterns and
their own hole
things.
pattern, yeah.
But they just have to be difficult.
Well, speaking of sanding discs, my next one is I would like a sanding disc that either lasts forever. I don't know anything about these things, so it's easy for me to just talk about the things that should exist, but I don't know whether there could be like some kind of carbide cutting.
I think it exists.
Does it?
Stumpy Nubs did a video about them.
Oh, really?
They're the really thin metal. I don't know what they are, but they last so much longer.
I'll have to check
I'll try and
those out.
find the video. It'd be hard to search because he does those videos that are about 10 different tools.
Yeah.
And I think when I looked at the time, because he's an American channel, they were only available in America. But I would be tempted to get even a second or third. When I had the Makita sander, they were only like 50 quid or 45 quid. I'd probably buy 3 of them and have a 40, an 80 and a 120.
One for each grit.
One for each grit. So if anyone's got a link to where you can get the metal sanding last forever ones, yeah, let us know, because it'd be one less thing for Keith to moan about.
I just hate waste, and obviously with the cheaper sanding discs that I've always used in the past, they just don't last at all, do they? So they just end up in the bin straight away, and it's just depressing. I hate throwing things away. So the 3M Cubitron ones that I've found recently have been a bit of a revelation for me. I'm really, really pleased with those. I've heard that there's a word that starts with S. I think they make the Festool granite discs. Can't remember the name of them, but they're supposed to be really well regarded as well.
See, I got sent the Trend ones. I was using the 3M ones, and they were quite expensive. And I got the Trend ones, and I prefer those. I think 3M ones, I think, had like the 30 hole pattern or more. loads of holes.
Yeah.
As the trend ones just have the standard holes, and I find the bigger standard holes just work better.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time they come up with these new fancy stuff like the mesh grits. I don't like the mesh ones at all.
See, I've always hated the mesh ones as well, mainly because they rip so easily. But these new Cubitron ones, I'm probably saying the wrong term, because I think Cubitron is the actual technology of the grit or something. But the ones that I'm using are part mesh. So dust extraction is fantastic. They haven't ripped on me yet at all either, which I've been really impressed by. I've been sanding edges and all sorts, and they've been great. So that name I was trying to think of is Smirdex, Smirdex.
See, I've not liked the mesh ones for dust collection particularly, because I find, especially when you're using a 40 grit, you've got some quite big particles through some quite small holes, and I found actually the ones with the big hole pattern is better.
Oh, right.
It's anecdotal, isn't it? You just like what you like. Yeah, I guess that's another thing. It's not only finding a good product, it's finding a good product that's easy to get hold of.
Yeah. And reasonably priced as well.
And reasonably priced, yeah. After my rant about screws, I've got one about nails.
Okay.
So nails actually is a bit like buying wood, is the complicated terminology. If you want small nails, which is mainly the only ones I ever use, like you buy veneer pins and panel pins and all these different things, but they don't really tell you what the size is.
Don't
you
they?
buy a screw and you've got two numbers. You've got the thickness of the screw and the length of the screw. I want that in nails. I want them to be 1 mil by 25 mil.
Do they not give that then?
Have a look. It drives me crazy.
I can't believe that. But then again, I haven't bought nails for so many years because I always seem to be finding bags of them and boxes of them.
Really fine little veneer pins are just so hard to find. And I think it was Ironmongery Direct was the best place I found. I think they charged for delivery, so if you only want a £2 bag of screws, nails, they're sold by weight as well. I guess is more practical because they weigh so little, it'd be hard to measure them out. But even if they just give you an approximate around 500 or something, because I don't know how many I want by weight.
Yeah.
But I do know how many I want. Like I want a box of 200 screws.
Yeah.
No, nails should be, I want the thickness and I want the length and I want the material it's made out of, bright steel or stainless steel.
Yeah.
I mean, this is basic stuff, but it's, again, people that run websites who just put a photo up and put veneer pin.
Yeah.
And I need more information than that. Oh, your technique of, he can't find something on Screwfix or Toolstation. If you want veneer pins and you can't remember the name and you put small nails into Amazon, it will come up with veneer pins. It's so sophisticated. But if you put small nails into Screwfix or Toolstation, it will come up with nothing. But if you put small nails Screwfix into Google, it will find them.
Yes.
So I often use Google to find things on their website if I don't know exactly what they've listed it as.
Just out of curiosity, I just put small nails into the search bar in Screwfix. The top result is Tornado barbed fencing staples, not nails. Second result, Easy Fix staples, multi-pack, zinc plated, not nails. Third result, Timco polymer headed pins. Oh, they are actually nails, although they've got the poly head on them, if you know what I mean, the sort that you would use for soffit boards and things like that. Oh, not soffit boards, fascia boards. So yeah, the search is absolutely useless. Right, so a couple of episodes ago, we had a bit of a discussion about wood finish controversy with hard wax oils, drying times, best application in order to get the most durable finish with hard wax oil. Following that, a project I've been working on, I thought, right, I'm going to apply it in the way that Osmo Canada suggested I applied it, which was with a brush and without wiping it away. It took 72 hours before I could work on that board again. And obviously in that duration, I didn't want to make any dust in the workshop. So there it sat for 72 hours. I couldn't use my workshop in that time. So my next one is a quick drying hard wax oil. I want something that's going to dry within a couple of hours at the most.
So yeah, 3 days for it to dry, that's terrible. I remember doing the floor with a hard wax oil of a shepherd's hut, and I did it in, say, January or something like that. So it's just, if it's 0 degrees outside, it was 0 degrees in the shepherd's hut with the door open, and it took, 2 days to dry. But that's understandable. But in a workshop at 10 degrees, it should go off.
Well, the thing is as well, you apply it to one side, wait for 3 days, then you want to apply it to the other side, wait another 3 days, then you can denib it, apply a second coat. That's potentially another 6 days, although for the second coat I just rubbed it on rather than applied it by brush, so it was a nice thin layer. So I'm hoping this one will dry quicker. It's still drying as we speak. I know a lot of people rave about hard wax oils, and I do too. I think they're brilliant, but they're not the most convenient, are they?
They do take a while to dry, but yeah, they're better than natural oils for drying time.
I guess so, although boiled linseed oil goes off really quite quickly in my experience.
Boiled linseed oil is not natural.
Oh, yeah, right, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got drying agents in.
Yeah, I think it's got polyurethane in it.
Has it really?
No, maybe that's Danish oil. But yeah, it's got drying agents. It's very toxic, boiled linseed oil. As pure linseed oil, you could have on your cornflakes.
Yeah.
Do not try that at home or listen to anything Matthew O'Keefe ever says. But I've just got into natural oils because I think I don't like chemical processes in things. It's just a few people commented going, you should wear gloves while applying that. And like, oh, I don't want to use anything I have to wear gloves for because it might be dangerous for me. Well, you're saying that yours, if you're working a 5-day working week, you're into week 3 until that's finished.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I mean, what I did to get around the issue, because I didn't want to wait 6 days for both sides of this thing to cure, I've got these strips of wood with nails poking up so that you can finish the underside, put them on top of the nails, and then finish the finished side. And then you get these little dimples on the bottom, but nobody's going to see it anyway, kind of thing. So that's one way of speeding it up, but yeah.
But yeah, the temperature thing, I've got a similar one, and that's wood glue. PVA wood glue, I think, is operating temperature over 10 degrees. And they all seem to be pretty much the same, all manufacturers that I've tried. But it's not just over 10 degrees, it dries much quicker at 18 degrees than it does at 14 degrees or 12 or 10. Can they not develop a wood glue? I suppose I just ranted that I want a wood finish with no chemicals in, and now I want some super drying properties in wood glue. But I don't mind bringing things into the house to put finish on them, particularly because I do that often anyway because of the whole, it makes my workshop unusable while I'm waiting for things to dry because I can't do anything dusty, which is pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But wood glue, as a woodworker, this is one of my most used things. It's probably not a project that I don't use. Even when I'm doing leatherworking, I'm using wood glue half the time.
Yeah.
And for third of the year, probably, it's unusable in my workshop at the moment. That's a big issue.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully all that will be solved in the new workshop. But you're saying even with your fully insulated workshop with your small heater, you struggle to get 10 degrees.
Yes. Yeah. Depends on the weather outside usually, but yeah.
And it's okay on a chopping board, but when you're making your kitchen island, you can't be carrying that in and out the house.
No. I used polyurethane glue a couple of times on that project just because I knew that the PVA glue just wasn't going to go off.
So what's the spec on polyurethane?
I think it works in any temperature, I think. It certainly works in low temperatures.
Humidity's an issue as well. I was doing this thing at my mum's, this cabinet, and I was working outside painting it because they didn't want me to paint it. I said, I'll work on the dining room table. I just put some newspaper down. Like, no, you're not. But it was a really foggy day, so which means probably the humidity level is 90-something% humidity. The paint, it says recoat in 2 hours, which normally means it's touch dry in an hour. I went back to it 4 hours later, put my finger on it thinking it'd be completely dry, and I just wiped the paint off.
Oh, no.
It was just hadn't cured at all because of the humidity levels. So that's an extreme example, I suppose. Just don't paint outside when it's foggy is a pretty easy thing to get around. But yeah, just this time of year, it's very hard to do anything. When I was back up north and using a lot, I was buying it by the 5 litre, and I'd probably go through 2 of those a year. I'd moved house with one, and I've been in this house over a year now, and it's still half full. I'm like, I'm probably going to end up throwing this glue away because I'm just not using it. So I definitely don't want to buy a second bottle, which is quite expensive for something that I'm not going to use.
Yeah, I always buy the 5-litre bottles but keep them in the house just so that I know that they'll be okay and I'll hopefully get the full lifespan out of them, and then I bring my small bottle in and refill it, kind of thing. I don't know much about the manufacture of batteries, but I've heard it's not particularly good for the environment, and I think it's quite irresponsible of tool brands to be constantly making their own proprietary batteries. So yeah, I'm back on that proprietary rant again, unfortunately, but I think we could really do with a universal tool battery that works across all platforms, and I know that will never ever happen because it's nigh on impossible, but this is a perfect world we're talking about here. So
yeah, I mean, some of the things we spoke about I think could exist and should exist. Others, yeah, this is never going to happen, but it'd be wonderful. I don't think there's a perfect tool manufacturer that has every single tool I want. And you watch these reviews, like the Concord Carpenter does the great ones where there are these amazing jigs with the angle grinders where they release a thing and they all start cutting at the same time with a weight on them, and it's amazing. And the Milwaukee angle grinder would be the best, but the Makita track saw would be the best, and the Bosch impact driver would be the best. And like, if you just wanted the best of everything, there's no one that does it.
Yeah,
I've got the Bosch batteries, but they don't do a garden range that fits those batteries, and I would love a chainsaw, but I'm gonna have to buy a whole new battery platform just to have a chainsaw. Have you ever tried those converters that change one battery to another platform?
I haven't, but I know for certain people they work really well. I think they're a good idea, but it would be good if you could buy one from perhaps a reputable brand, because I don't really want to be buying some unknown Chinese manufactured thing that may or may not blow up.
Yes, and I bet the manufacturers are trying to work around it so you can't do it, and maybe the tool stops working. It's like when your phone, if you ever have an iPhone and it comes up with that it's an unrecognised accessory because it's not an Apple approved one.
It would just be nice if the tool brands, again, this is being very idealistic, but if they prioritised the environment over making loads of money, that would be amazing. But again, I mean, you talked before about SawStop and the fact that they haven't licensed that technology out to other companies, and also when Bosch tried to develop a similar type of technology, I think it was called Reax or something along those lines. SawStop brought out the patent lawyers and basically shut them down immediately. Yeah. Again, it would be great if SawStop recognised the fact that they're sitting on a technology that could be of a benefit to loads of people. It would save people cutting their fingers off. You could still make money from it, license it out to other manufacturers. I just don't understand why they wouldn't do that. I guess, again, because it's more lucrative to sit on it and have it for themselves.
Talking of SawStop, have you seen the latest Festool table saw?
Nope.
Oh, really? There's been lots of videos about it on Instagram. It fits in a sustainer.
Really?
It runs off 2 batteries. It has a digital readout for the blade height, and what they demonstrate it is they have a block of wood that's say 18mm thick, and then they put a banknote on top of it, and then put a bit of perspex on to hold it down, set the blade height to 18mm, cut through the bit of wood perfectly without damaging the banknote.
Really?
It's got a sliding table on it. It looks a fantastic little saw, but I imagine it's extremely expensive, and you need 2 Festool batteries for it. So
this is the CSC SYS 50 cordless table saw. Oh, interesting. No, I've not seen that.
And it's £1,528 without the batteries.
Oh, I might buy 3 or 4.
Yeah, definitely not even contemplating it for a second. But I can understand if you're a tradesperson that uses a sustainer system to be able to wheel everything in and out.
Yeah.
A table saw, being able to wheel it up a tiny flight of stairs in some old building flats or something. The
table is absolutely tiny though, isn't it? I mean, like you say, if you're on site and you need to cut down a piece of trim or something like that, perfect. But
that's it. I should think it's laminate flooring, trim work, those kind of jobs. It's nice to see something innovative. I can't say the word. You know
innovative,
what I mean?
Yeah.
So many table saws, especially the battery versions. Well, I've got one, the Bosch. It is just their mains powered version with a battery. So's the DeWalt one, but there's no other table saw that goes in a box.
I've got one final one, although it's kind of two mixed into one. And again, I don't really have all of the answers for these ones, but I started thinking about PPE, and there's two issues that just reoccur for me continually that really frustrate me. The first is safety glasses that truly do not fog up. I've had expensive ones that say they're anti-fogging, but the truth is, as soon as you wear a respirator and a pair of safety glasses, they are going to fog up. I know there are solutions out there, but they tend to be a bit more cumbersome in terms of full facial covering things. The other thing is respirators. I'd like to see a bit more innovation in terms of respirators that are easier to put on and take off. Anything that makes it less cumbersome, really. And also the whole filter system for respirators. Every time you buy a new set of filters, you're talking, £10-15 just for two simple filters. And there's not that much going on with these filters, let's face it. It's just it's obviously a really fine mesh that captures any particles that need to go in. So I just don't understand why they're so expensive. And I'd like to see a respirator that's really well designed, really sleek, fits closely to the face, is comfortable to wear for long periods of time, has cheap filters. I don't ask for much, do I?
Yeah, they are so expensive, the filters. In fact, I've ended up buying a new respirator because it was only like £2 more to get the whole thing than to buy new filters. And actually, when I got the new one, I realised how stretched out all the elastic had got on the old one.
Yeah.
Because they don't last forever. Yeah, what I find with the glasses as well is if I have the glasses on and then the ear defenders on, it pushes the side of the ear defenders push on the arms, whatever you call them, for the glasses.
Yeah.
It pushes the glasses into the side of your head, which is uncomfortable, and the ear defenders don't fit as well. So I've tried the goggles that have the elastic strap, which gets rid of that. But then when you're trying to lift them up, they're just uncomfortable. You to take them off, because sometimes you're doing something, you just need to take them off. You've made the cut, you turn the saw off, you just want to readjust the fence or something, you just take your glasses off because it's slightly easier to see.
Yeah.
But with the strap, then you have to take off your ear defenders, pull the strap off, and yeah. What looks really fancy, and maybe if I get into turning, is those full face masks that have the respirator built in.
Yeah.
But then you've got to have a pack around your waist with batteries in it.
What have you got to recommend to us this week then, Matt?
Well, it was something I didn't think I was interested in, but I just saw so many other people talking about it, and I'm sure you've seen it, is the Colin Furze, his new workshop.
Yes.
See, everyone's watched it. It's not really my cup of tea. It's not a workshop that I would want or tools I'm interested in, but it's interesting seeing him going from a shed in his backyard, well, with a massive bunker under it, to this big barn in a farm, and it's just got everything he could possibly ever want. And it's just nice to see how excited he is by the possibilities this gives him.
Yeah.
I think he's very talented. It's not my cup of tea, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was an interesting video.
Yeah, I was going to say the possibilities are endless in terms of projects that he could create, but I've already seen a recent project where he made a wobble thing. I don't know what the name of these things is, but it's basically a big concrete block with a rounded surface on the bottom that he can stand on at great height and then wobble around. Difficult to explain, but he was limited by the height of his new massive aircraft hangar.
Wow.
It's amazing that the first project he did in that space has already limited him.
That's very first world problems, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just goes to show the scale of his ambitions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. My recommendation this time is another Matthias Wandel video. I'm sure we've all had the age-old problem of you're about to do a glue up, you get your clamps off the rack, and you think, oh, these clamps will be the right size for what I need to clamp up. And then you go to clamp them up and they're sometimes even like 3 millimeters, don't have quite enough reach. And it's very frustrating. Yeah, Matthias made some bar clamp extenders that are compatible with F clamps. As you'd expect from Matthias, they're very over-engineered, so lots of finger joints and things. But basically you slot your F clamp into these things and extend the reach of them, which is brilliant because obviously F clamps are quite economical to buy anyway. You can exert a huge amount of pressure with them. They've always been my go-to clamp, really. So that's the bar clamp extender for when my longest clamps aren't long enough. And we'll link to those videos in the show notes.
Thank you for listening. You can find Keith on YouTube by searching for Rag N Bone Brown and me by searching for Badger Workshop. We have a Patreon page if you'd like to help support us in making future episodes of the podcast. Link to that in the show notes. And we have a Workshop Banter Instagram and Facebook page if you'd like to get in touch, which is @Workshop Banter, all one word.